Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? This is another video response to bacon because who doesn't love bacon? I did a video response to his video talking about his emerging theory of gaming not so long ago, I think a day ago actually. And then I realized I watched his videos in reverse order, and he did this examination of a game called Trollbabe by Ron Edwards. And I think that prompted his next video. So I wanted to talk about this a little bit because I found his, if you haven't watched his video, I'm going to link it below. Go ahead and watch it. If you have not read Trollbabe, go to Adept Press, get it. Get the print version or the PDF version, whatever floats your boat. Read it. Even if you don't like games like that, it's worth the read. In his video, Bacon talks about this idea, well, is this really a role-playing game or is this a story game? What's going on with this particular thing? And talking about the idea, well, what the heck is role-playing? And what should we call role-playing and not call role-playing and all that kind of stuff? I really wanted to make this response and to have a discourse with Bacon because this is interesting stuff. And I recognize in a lot of ways a kindred spirit in terms of, I think if you put Bacon and I in a room together, two different rooms, and made us define what do we think role-playing really is, you have to come up with one definition. And, how do you like to play? And what do you think a game should look like? It would probably be very similar. However, I think it's helpful to take a look at things from a different perspective. And that can help understand what games like this are all about. And there's also practical application in terms of, understanding gaming and in terms of playing with other people and solving problems that you might have. Because, well, it helps to be receptive to the idea that there are different intentions for play. That something like GNS theory has... is a decent, or it's a model that is useful in explaining what you're seeing amongst gamers and amongst game design. And so there's different intentions for play. Because there are different intentions for playing role-playing games, there are going to be different definitions of what role-play is. And that's going to depend upon the different people that define role-play. I would love to have a really codified and agreed upon lexicon of gaming. This is never going to happen. My own hard-won experience and beating my head against the wall and talking to friends and trying to come up with things, it's not going to happen. Things are the way they are. The ships have sailed in terms of what gets called a role-playing game, and we're not going to change the terms that people use. Very often we have a hard time talking to each other, and the conversation regarding role-playing games and role-playing can be difficult because very often we're using the same words to describe different things. So even though I would love for that not to be true and to fix that, I don't think that's going to happen. So it's useful, and examinations like this are useful because you start to be able to define what people mean when they say the same words that you're using, and you realize they're not talking about the same thing. Are you confused yet? Anyhow, in Trollbabe, what Ron Edwards has done is he's distilled the narrativist, or if you prefer, the dramatic or dramatist creative agenda or intention down to its barest essentials. This is a game stripped of all pretense, stripped of all extraneous interstitial tissue. Get rid of all that. Let's get down to what is role-playing game that's, absolutely 100% focused on the narrativist creative agenda. What is that going to look like? And it's interesting, in the very first part that Bacon looks at, it's been a while since I read the game, so it made me smile. Ron pretty much almost calls out behavior of people where they're doing things for narrative reasons, they're doing things for dramatic reasons, but they're not necessarily confessing or understanding, or they just don't want to talk about it. That's what they're doing. In this game, he's explicitly saying, we're not going to make any bones about this. This is exactly what we're doing. This is exactly why we're making the decisions we're making. In fact, this is how you play the game. If you play it differently, you're playing it wrong. You're supposed to be playing it from the standpoint of a director or of an author, not of assuming the identity of a character, not from an actor stance or possessor stance or anything like that. This is how to play this sort of game. And the decisions you're making in this game are based upon that agenda. I think it's more accurate to not call this a story game as such, although that's a label that seems to have stuck in a lot of cases. But this is a role-playing game where the narrativist creative agenda is first and foremost. And it's intentionally going to create drama. It's going to be story as product. It's, that's what we're doing. And it's interesting, there are parts of the game where, I forget what Bacon was looking at, stakes and consequences, where in Trollbabe there it's very prescriptive. Trollbabes are going to be brought into conflicts, and when these conflicts occur, there's going to be an out-of-character discussion about the stakes, about the consequences, the possible consequences, about the potential actions of each individual character, what can and can't they do, a lot of out-of-character discussion before we go back in and role play through the event. And it's interesting because this is stripped bare to what that creative agenda is about. Very often it's veiled, but here it's laid completely bare, which is really, really kind of interesting. And it gave Bacon some pause. It certainly gave me some pause the first time I read that and started to read about games like this. But this is what does it for a lot of people. This is what they want. There's an example that Ron Edwards uses an awful lot, where he talks about being at a convention, somebody's running a game, he starts to realize that it's pretty obvious that this person, what's supposed to happen in this game is that at some point we're supposed to do all this investigation and finally get to a warehouse, we're going to have a fight with the big bad guy. And so Ron says, are we heading to having a fight with this guy in the warehouse? And the game master looks a little, shocked and taken aback and says, well, yeah, actually, that's what we're going to do. And that eventually that's what's supposed to happen. And Ron says, can we just go to the warehouse? Can we just do the thing? So a lot of what Trollbabe does is cut out all that interstitial tissue. We're here for the drama. We're here for the conflict. Can we just get to that? Can we just determine what these stakes are going to be, agree collaboratively that this is the thing that's going to be the most interesting to us, and then role play that out? Once again, you might be screaming at this point, well, that's not role play. And I understand. I hear that little voice in my head too. But it helps to understand that the intention that you or I bring to the table is not the only one. And for other people, they're absolutely saying, yeah, that's what I want to do. That's what role play is for me. And the people that are into, being tactical, gamers at this point are screaming their heads off. You know what I mean? But bear with me. That's what the procedures of Trollbabe are calling out. So it's helpful to look at a game like that. There's an interesting part where Bacon calls what's happening here at one point as what kind of railroad? A narrative railroad, where the players are all sitting down talking about what should happen, and the players are calling, I want to see him with this and this kind of conflict. I would say that all railroads are narrative railroads. This is a tangent, but this is probably not helpful. But I'm going to say it anyway. One of the descriptors of narrativism is the idea that it's story now. What we're doing as we're playing a game with that creative agenda is we are creating the story, we're creating the drama right now. We are coming up with it right now and then playing it right now. That makes a lot of sense when you think of the idea of the railroad, where there's in another game style, a game master, another approach really, I believe, to narrativism. A game master comes up with an idea, comes up with a story arc. Sound familiar? Comes up with what should happen, this overarching thing. We're not quite sure how the characters are going to get there, but there's going to be this big bad evil guy, and then we're going to go through these modules or whatever it is. But story before. Story is being created beforehand, and then we're playing it out. Or you can have story after, where nobody's creating a story intentionally. Not the game master beforehand sitting down. This is the idea of what should happen. I'm going to write the Against the Giant series. Not the players in real time in Trollbabe, following those procedures, but we're just playing our characters as if we were them. The game master's playing the world as if it was real. And I did kind of This is a big tangent, but I did kind of misrepresent a little bit the idea of simulationism in terms of there is definitely simulation of the world, but it's not necessarily the world physics. It's like what actually works in that world. How is this world? Is the world going to realistically push back based upon the physics of that genre and the rules of that particular game? What do the rules of that game tell us should happen? Do we need to roll dice to find out if the staircase collapses when there's that many people on it? This is a real world example, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. So, it's all about story now. But all railroads are narrative railroads. In the story before, the game master has come up with this. So it's narrative. In Trollbabe, it's a collaborative railroad. It's laid bare. It's transparent. All the people are contributing to it. They can all see it. They can all see the tracks. They all know they're there. They've laid the damn tracks. And then they're going to go down that railroad because they want to have this particular type of experience. You may hate that. The fact that playing like this, in most cases, I'd rather stick pins in my eyes, doesn't mean this is a bad game. Doesn't mean that that's a bad creative agenda or intention. It's not the point. It's recognizing that different people have different intentions for why they come to the table in the first place. They may not, they may absolutely be bored out of their minds. They don't want to play every little bit, or they don't want to play the life of that character and play the world that way. Where can we get to the good part? For me, that might be the good part. It is. For somebody else, the good part is getting to the damn warehouse, having the conflict, having the stakes. For somebody else, it may be having the challenge and being right there in the challenge. Can we skip all this other stuff and just get to the point where we do fight the big bad evil guy, or where we can tactically figure out how to best do this, or to maybe manage these resources? Let me see if I can, figure this out better than you can. Can I solve the puzzle? Can I stick the mirror under the door and then before the game master figures out what I'm doing, see what's on the other side? Real world example. So my thought, my thing to consider, for maybe Bacon to consider, for other people to consider, is take a look at it that way. Once you start to look at it that way, you start to realize that, okay, there's not one size fits all definition of role play, because different people are going to come to the table with different intentions in the first place. That make some of you scream. There's still that little voice in my head that screams sometimes, this isn't role play. What they're doing isn't role play. But it is to them. And because of that, it's not, fair for me or somebody else to take that definition for my own and let them know, well, they're not doing this right. One true way isn't, all that kind of stuff. I was guilty of that for a very long time, and if I'm not careful, I can be guilty of that now. It's not, that's the trap that I watch people fall into when they have a certain game experience that they like, that they want. And it's easy to put everything on a spectrum from, you're not doing that very well, you're really sucking at it, to like, once you do all these things, now you have it, now you're really role-playing. But that ignores a whole bunch of other people that never wanted that experience in the first place. It's not that they're 90%ers or 99%ers that just don't want this special thing you've discovered. It's that they don't want the special thing that you've discovered because they want a completely different experience when they sit down at the table. And maybe they want something like Trollbabe. So for me, this is a really cool game to look at, to examine. Something like Sorcerer is also, it's worded different. I believe it came after. I think it's more of Ron Edwards' seminal work, or the thing that he really, that was his real thing, the thing he did a lot of work on. But I would just, once again, it's not a rebuttal, it's a consider this. There's a different way of looking at things like this, because intentions are different. And ultimately, I said it was practical application. And if you're still here, congratulations, you're a trooper. I have found that there are people that I play with, people that I know that have different intentions for play than I do. I have friends that absolutely want to play, a certain type of character, and really what they're there for is the challenge. They like the different genres, but they're there for the challenge. I have other friends where it is about some intentional creation of drama or a story or things that are, narratively appropriate. And they can be all different places on the spectrum where sometimes it can be hard to see. But you start to realize, oh, that's why they're making those decisions. Sometimes there are people that I've discovered we should not play together because we want things that are so different. Sometimes with a particular game, we have a discussion and we realize that, oh, you know what? We're not going to enjoy playing this game together. We can play some other games together. Very often during session 0, you can sit down and realize you have people that have different intentions, and you can start to have negotiations. Well, you need some of this drama in your game. You want to get to the damn warehouse. There need to be warehouses. there needs to be challenge. There need to be these things, and you can get people with different intentions together, talk like adults, and you're able to solve a lot of these problems. But you need to identify, I believe, that you need to be able to identify and suss out that you have different intentions, that sometimes when you're using the same words, you're talking about different things. You learn how to communicate with each other, and you're still able to play together as friends and as a group. And so as time has gone on, I've got more and more real-world experience and application with this. And in large measure, my ability to do that was because I started to accept the fact that there were theories out there that described types of intentions and types of games that explained what I was seeing and was frustrating me. So anyhow, long video. Maybe I got to the point, but yeah, I'd love to hear Bacon's response to this, and love to have a discourse. The end. See you later, kids.